Tonight we have, I have the great pleasure of introducing two of my favorite people. One of whom, the more illustrious of the two, Stuart Goodnick, is a student of Italian teacher Robert Ennis. He is himself vice president of a software startup company. He is a serious student of and performer on the shakuhachi. We just received an email from someone, a fourth-way teacher on the other side of the planet, on the island of Mauritius, who mentioned in this email that Stuart writes with, I believe he said, verve, eloquence, and there was a third positive adjective. I don't recall what the third one was.
Tonight's talk is on vanity.
Well, we'll see. And then the slightly less illustrious Rob Schmidt, I'm happy to introduce. Rob
that would be Dr. Schmidt.
That would be Dr. Schmidt, that's true. Rob and his famous PhD. It does tricks when he allows it to. Rob also studied with Robert Ennis. He is a chameleon, as so many of us in the fourth way are. When tact is called for, he can be tactful. When brilliance is called for, he can be brilliant. When modesty is called for, sometimes he falls short. But here we are tonight. Welcome. So I have to put on my official modest cap, yes, and my mantle of authority.
Oh, goodness.
Voila. So, it is, to return to a slightly more serious note for a moment, it is my pleasure to dedicate this talk tonight to Walter Bloom. Many of you know Walter Bloom. He is, I believe, 88 years old, a fixture of the spiritual scene here in Sebastopol for many years. He first started studying Zen back in the 70s and at the San Francisco Zen Center, and has continued his studies and brought a level of verve and vivacity to his 88 years. Every day that I've ever had the pleasure of seeing him and chatting with him, he is now undergoing his passing from this existence as we speak, probably in the next couple of days or so, I'm told. But all the reports I have is that he is doing an outstanding job at that, as he has done throughout the years that I have known him here in town. He is, he for many years he's been a member of one of the groups that meets here called the Sutra Salon, a group devoted to study of the Buddhist scriptures. And I could tell a lot of stories about Walter in that context. But, of course, he was not present on Tuesday night at this meeting, the most recent meeting. But one of the people who had been able to see him earlier that day said that, told the story that Walter has been going in and out of consciousness. Apparently, quite consistently conscious today, as a matter of fact, from out here. But in any event, he's been going in and out of consciousness at times. And at one point, someone asked him if he was dreaming when he was going in and out of consciousness, and his response was, "All of life is a dream." So Walter is maintaining the authority of clarity even to the end, apparently. And that is a great achievement, a very great achievement. And we can count ourselves, those of us who have known him, very lucky to have known him. So I'm happy to dedicate this talk to him. Right? I don't say his memory yet, because even though I have him in my memory well fixed forever, he's still in the body, insofar as I'm aware. I hope maybe I'll even get a chance to see him before he goes. We'll see. So, Walter is a good, and the dedication to Walter is a good place to start our discussion of karmic manure, which is a topic that can easily lend itself to a focus on some of the darker aspects of the production of karma. But his example is a nice demonstration that karma need not be only bad, it can be good as well. That's not to say that we don't want eventually to be able to cut it or end it entirely, eventually. But good karma is a wonderful thing. And some of the good karma that comes from producing good karma even ends karma too. So it's a double boon, double blessing. You don't have to jump in here.
I'll find my spot.
Okay. And then you'll be off and running as you're wet. Excuse me, yeah. Some more. So, I wrote the description for this talk, but to be honest with you, can't remember a word of it at this point.
Maybe I should start.
That would be fun.
All right. Well, there's a notion in the talk.
See, he found his spot.
There's a notion in the discussion, because I just read the description. There's a notion in the description about that our life is filled with eating substances of various orders, and we're all very used to the idea of eating food. Our body needs food. We consume solid matter, we drink fluids, our stomachs digest them, energy products are extracted from that substance, and higher level energy, higher level products are produced in our system. And similarly, we have an analogous process that takes place as we breathe. We breathe air in, and that air is used as energy for our system. So we have this idea that we are in contact with the outside world, with our exterior lives in some form, because we eat parts of it, we breathe parts of it, and use the substances thereby to fuel our existence. But less often considered is a idea that I think it probably occurs in other traditions, but the Fourth Way tradition, the Gurdjieff tradition, was particularly articulate about this, is that there's another substance, there's another food that we eat that we don't pay as much attention to, and that's the food of our impressions. So if you consider, we are sensory organs, or organisms. We have trillions of nerve cells that are receiving information from the outside universe. And whereas you might be able to go, a day, a few days without food, and maybe at least a couple of days without water, maybe a few minutes without air, the claim is that if our impressions stopped, we would just, essentially cease to be as organisms. That we are receiving so much information in the form of impressions. And what do we do with these impressions? Well, the problem in the ordinary condition of most of our lives is that these impressions come in, and rather than being digested in a harmonious process to extract higher energetic products out of those impressions, just like when we eat food, what happens is that we have this kind of psychological or conscious indigestion that takes place. And what that means is that impressions come in, and we immediately associate them to well-worn pathways